All right, welcome to Steam It Talk. I am your host, Winston Wolf, and to my left here, I have my co-host,
Quantum Anomaly.
and to my right,
Gifted Gaia.
and across from me,
Psycho Chica.
and
Episode number 5.
number 5.
That's
That
a
was
good
loud.
number.
That is a great number.
No, I like it.
Yeah. So what's up?
General Steam It news. There has been an explosion of apps. I have not gotten to try any of them yet. I've still sort of been hovering in my content overload / I am creating a ridiculous amount of stuff right now. But there's definitely a large number of new apps that are coming out and peripherals, websites, things like that, all Steam It related.
I can't keep up.
Yeah, no, I
There's
really
so
can't.
much stuff.
It's too much. It's either read articles or read about Steam It, or write articles. And you can't do all three.
One that stuck out for me was that Steam Swap. It's kind of like the Craigslist sort
Okay,
of
yeah, I
thing
did
as far
see a
as
little bit on
articles
that.
and postings. It didn't have much on it because I went to look right after it was launched. But I'm very interested to see if that takes off or just how it goes. Because
And
it
you
kind
use
of goes,
your actual Steam for that, right? Like
Yeah,
you don't
you use-
have to transfer it to Bitcoin and then dollars and then.
I believe so. I never, I didn't go through the full process to completely verify, but I
Right.
believe that's the idea. Is you can be like you would on Craigslist, but with your Steam, and you just transfer it to their account.
Right.
It's also a good way to find other Steam users because you'll run into them at random places, or as far as that goes. I guess I don't know if we're talking about a shipping model, like it's more of like an Amazon type deal, or if it's like
it would be more like
Craigslist
a user, like more like a Craigslist, I would think, like
Right,
user
like-
to user.
Exactly.
But in any sense, you got to start somewhere, and you'll get to a Steam at Walmart eventually.
Well, and it just kind of starts to broaden things up because not everybody's necessarily a writer, or not everyone has photos. Sometimes
No, that's a
it's-
huge thing that I have been struggling with. Is luckily I am a writer, and there's a few other hobbies that I can do, but they're I do a lot of hobbies, but I don't do them all the time. So as far as being a content producer, I am a lot more frequent now than I ever have been, but it's really mostly in writing, and so But I also I feel envious for the photographers like you, who can produce who always are taking pictures or video and stuff, and it's I don't have that kind of volume of work that I can fall back on.
That post from Stella Bell that was kind of talking along this issue. It's the questionnaire for whales and solutions for frustrated minnows. It's kind of getting further into that idea of not everybody's a writer.
Right.
It also kind of, to a large degree, is we're so inundated already with posts and writing and fiction and pictures, and there's nothing wrong with it, but if that's the only draw you have, it just starts to become kind of an issue. So that's kind of what she was getting into, was what are some things outside of writing. It's a really interesting thread in general, but she kind of gets into things like translating services and services like Fiverr, like video creations, writing, logo design.
I think it'd be a really good idea and I think it's probably still too young of a platform yet, but for example, connecting different types of artists. So I've always been I'm an ideas guy. I have great ideas, but say I want to make a video game, I would need, at bare minimum, somebody who can write code, somebody who can do art, and somebody who could do music, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that any kind of socialized platform like this would be a great way to where it's difficult to be somebody with ideas and not be afraid of people just running away with them, But I think connecting people is really, connecting people with good production value to people with good ideas would be a great way to, I think that Steam It's still a little bit young for that. There's not enough user base to really hit on that yet. And I think there also needs to be a good way to kind of front, if you wanted to pay somebody for something, front them half and have the other half, in some kind of reserve that Steam It controls or is, automated, that would be released when work was done or something like that to keep, the buyer beware sort of thing.
I believe that's the smart contracts that they've been talking
Oh, really?
about. I think that's the direction it's going. I've
That'd
only
be so
gotten
awesome.
so deep, but I believe that was the general idea of kind of being able to ensure to some degree, okay, this happened, release the money. I
right.
kind of like
some
that to
kind of
escrow.
an amount. Yeah, an escrow.
Yeah, as far as having user participation on that, everybody's going to be interested as far as it being a currency. It's not, I mean, that opens up a lot of doors, even though you have to go through the exchanges to get it actual into whatever currency you wanted
Right.
in. But it's not like a website where you have to get people to buy into it by them participating in it. There's the money opportunity there, and so people automatically start turning heads, especially when you have celebrities joining overnight and raking in tens of thousands of dollars just because they joined that day.
I think it's also I would coin or turn the phrase aggressively social. Like, you want to meet new people. You want to meet new people so that you can have followers, and so that they can have followers, and so that you can get content curated. Like, I am more, apt to get out there and really try to have a human connection with somebody, not just because I want an upvote or a follower or something, but because it expands upon my understanding of a certain, a certain topic or a certain, kind of activity that we can get into and meet people that are very genuine about it and very open about it, which, things that we've touched on a million times before. But I'm much more active in trying to meet somebody than I really ever have been socially, online or otherwise.
Well, and even kind of like you were talking about before, as far as in like the video game sense of being an ideas person, but kind of needing those other expertises. That's, again, what gets back to the white paper in general, of not only the motivation to go and meet people, but also the collaboration that you then start
Right.
building from those as well. Because then you have the potential to actually implement the ideas without having to have the expertise yourself.
Yep. Or you can have the expertise and give it to people who have great ideas. I mean, it works. It's a very two-sided street. So.
Well, and I'm a firm believer that everyone has something to offer to somebody.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
it could be as simple as just someone to listen to you vent for a while, to just an understanding person in the same position, to other sorts of products and services beyond that. But
Right.
I really hope that things like that can turn on in people, that because I've heard often of. I just don't have anything to bring. Like, what would I bring to the website if I was to bring
Right.
content? And I mean, it's one of those I understand in the sense of you can't always write it or present it in a blog form, but let that idea come of what do you bring to the table? What can you bring?
Yeah.
Well, and I was somewhere the other night just hanging out with some people, and they had some adorable pets, and one of them was doing a whole barrage of tricks. Not it was on command, but it was not like in an order. It was like
Right.
whichever one, and there kept being more and more and more, and eventually I realized we're talking like 10 to 15 tricks this dog knew, and I was like, that's a freaking smart dog. Of course, for the reward of the bacon, which we haven't talked about bacon enough yet.
Bacon?
Yes.
We haven't talked about bacon.
We'll get there.
There is.
We'll get there.
There is some delicious bacon
Someone
nearby.
said bacon.
To finish my thought on that, I referenced Steam it earlier in the evening and kind of got tepid indifference as far as people's responses. And then when I saw this moment where this dog was going through its tricks, I was thinking, even if you recorded that video in like some kind of watered down, honest America's home videos, funniest home videos moment where that dog's going crazy and everybody's laughing in the room, even to put that on Steam it would be original content in some sense. And at some point, one of those like home pet videos or some kind of meme that somebody made is going to actually
happen.
hit, and it'll
Yeah.
go viral, and that'll bring a lot of attention to the site when it does.
Yep.
So in that model, everybody's got something to add on to that side as far as what they bring that could be original. It's just film something in your day to day, and you're gonna find something.
I appreciate just those things, like that made me smile. Like I have nothing beyond that as far
Right.
as what to
Yep.
but that alone, I mean, I've started to appreciate those a lot more.
Absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to commandeer this podcast, and I want to talk a little bit about
dare you.
meat tornadoes.
Those were good, Quantum. Those are really good.
Thank you. No, I do appreciate that. So that was from Steam It Talk podcast episode 3. We brought up meat tornadoes. I'm not sure what context that came about.
I think it was just.
It just happened.
I think it was in the context of alcohol. would
Yeah,
have been my
that's
guess.
it.
Most of that podcast was in the content of alcohol, or context of alcohol.
So I said during that podcast that I would make them. I said I would make these, and then during episode 4, I said, "No, guys, it's really going to happen."
I didn't
And-
believe you because
No,
I didn't know they
I'm
existed.
sure everybody.
I thought
like,
it was
yeah, whatever.
wonderful fantasy.
And-
I had faith in you. What I didn't have faith in was that it was only going to take about 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to draw it out too long. I figured it's kind of do or die sort of situation where, I
All right.
didn't want to talk about them forever, and I pretty much already had a good idea of what I wanted to do. Today was definitely a very first run. I I have made them once. I did not find a recipe. I came up with this recipe, and if it sucked, I wasn't going to bring it. So, luckily I got to taste them first.
Well, there's photographic evidence that these are real meat tornadoes in the actual real world, quote unquote. The second observation would be
my photos notwithstanding, because they're horrible and blurry. And
No,
I'm pretty sure my cell phone had a fingerprint smudge on it, which is why I couldn't get a photo to save my life. And by the time I got to the last photo of trying to display it, I had this grand vision of how I wanted to display it for the intro photo, but I was starving because I had been literally spending the entire day working on them.
There's so much meat flying around the room when you're making a meat tornado.
Definitely, it was a
cell phones get blocked sometimes.
Oh, it was horrible, and there was grease everywhere. But they're
Smudges
delicious.
You prevailed, though.
I did. I made it through.
I think
to the
we
other
all
side.
prevailed.
And my post is more than just a recipe. It is in fact a full-on story written from the perspective of a colonel, a private, and a scientist who are out trying to study and identify the destruction caused by said meat tornado.
Yes.
Hmm.
I've read this post.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it'll
I've
get
not
tagged
read
here.
this post.
It'll get tagged here.
Yeah.
You were running around the woods doing a photo shoot, I think.
I was. We'll talk
But
about that shortly.
It's a legend and a story that continues in that we actually have one surviving meat tornado.
There's one final
And
meat tornado in
this
our
is-
vicinity.
It's such a synchronicity that Winston happened to arrive late. There's one left, and we figured, why the hell not? Let's go ahead and have you eat this on the podcast.
Okay, that sounds delightful. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with you guys. Try some meat with bacon wrapped around.
Yeah, no, it's meats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are multiple meats.
Try some meat with meat wrapped around
And
it,
meat with
wearing
on
meat.
it. Yeah, it is wearing meat. It's dressed up in meat.
It's a shipping chips.
That was impressive.
Wow.
We'll see if you can do that after
I'm
this
not going to
meat
try to
tornado.
dissect that. So
So,
no,
describe this in your...
yeah, give the viewers
yes.
or the
And
listeners.
it's got to be in
a view.
movie tone voice.
I don't have
Yeah,
to
it doesn't
describe
have to.
anything. I just took a picture of it. We'll
That's-
get.
Okay, well, give us the movie trailer voice description.
In a world.
With meat. This face right now is priceless.
I got nothing.
You do it.
I got
You can do
nothing.
it. You can do it. You can do it.
In a world with
a
meat, wrapped in meat.
A chicken and a pig.
An unholy union.
It's definitely not kosher.
One of the 7 signs.
Of happiness and freedom. All right, are we done with that?
I'm just gonna eat the fucking
Yeah.
thing.
You should. I'm crying.
Okay, here.
There's napkins behind you.
It may drip some too, so you may want it over a napkin.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a picture
It
of this
could
for you
require a
folks.
bib.
And be careful of the toothpick.
Yeah, there's a single toothpick in there. Don't eat that.
That's my favorite part.
Okay, well, I mean, eat it if you want, but I'm not liable for that.
He looks pretty happy here, folks.
He's going at it.
The tornado just fought back.
Yeah, it did.
I give it an F3 rating. F3's pretty good.
I rated it an F5. It's rated an F5. In the
You
blog.
made it. You get to.
I'm allowed.
Remember, it's rated by damage, not flavor.
Well, yeah, I didn't. It's not soaked in ghost pepper chilies or anything.
That would give it a 6.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that third tornado?
Where's the beef?
Did you actually do the bourbon bacon on this one?
No, so I did not. So actually,
This is awesome.
No,
Sorry.
I was going to revert to trying to do the bourbon bacon, but I was already, like I said, this has been several days in the planning, and by the time I got to the point where it was actually like, okay, let's go make them, I was like, if I made bourbon bacon now, because of course you have to make the bacon infused
Right.
bourbon first, and then use the bacon infused bourbon to marinate the bacon with. And I was like, that's a whole day's process on its own, as much as, heart cryptic. But that's going to have to come another time. So
These were still delicious. I am not complaining.
yeah, no, they're
I'm
super
not
simple
complaining.
too. Like this is not a difficult recipe. This isn't anybody can do it recipe. It took me a lot longer to make because I was having to figure out, how I was going to write down every step in the process, and I include most of the writing and measuring and pre-measuring and everything. But if you were to actually prep time on these, it's probably about 20 or 30 minutes, and cook time is an hour. And
There's going to be meat grease all over my laptop.
If any of you guys try this recipe out there, I'd love to see
oh
a
no,
picture.
for sure.
Just
I want
put
to
it in
see
the
a
comment
I want
on
a
here.
picture if you find some if you did something different. Like I said, my recipe has like like 6 or
Mail
7
me a
ingredients.
sample of those. It'd be delicious. A meat tornado exchange going through Steam It and the USPS.
Yeah, so there are 6 ingredients in this, and that includes 2 of the ingredients are chicken and bacon. So this is not complex.
That's the best part. What do you think about that?
It's almost
Winston
gone.
Wolf.
You're destroying
Yeah,
it
it's
over
holy
there.
cow, it's gone. Hmm.
So while
That's
he's
good for me.
finishing, what did you guys think of the idea of doing like a Springfield meetup? Some here, like a just local. Bring
I mean,
some
I'm
other
game.
people in,
There's
see what we can do.
there are definitely a growing number of Springfield users. There's at least 2 more users that we discovered just in this last week.
Will there be more meat tornadoes there?
I certainly hope so.
Donations are accepted.
I'm down if that's what's up.
These did come out to about $1 a piece if you follow the recipe, and that is provided that you already have maybe butter or maybe Worcestershire sauce in your house. But just the chicken, bacon, brown sugar, you're looking about $1 a pop on those, so not too bad.
I like the idea of a meetup, and it's what I referenced earlier as far as being able to locate other Steam It users. I feel like, for whatever reason, for me, it feels like I can't navigate that place in a method that I can find people in my area. And so when you start finding them, like the few that I have found, I like fucking go nuts. I'm like, holy shit.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I've seen one of those
Internet
apps where
trend.
you can basically kind of have it geolocate you, like you kind of turn your device on, it'll ping you on the map, and then you can see where others are. But it's all like opt-in sort of thing,
Right.
so it was pretty sparse when I looked, especially around here. It's beyond that. It's kind of hard just with the way it's set up because there's not like a profile where you
No,
can
it
search.
really is.
The closest you can do is maybe pull all of the introduce yourself posts and search for the word Springfield, Missouri.
And I don't even think I put Springfield, Missouri in mine. I think I did Southwest, so.
Well, and I think it'll be easier to relate to people, obviously, if you meet them in person, because then if they're an artist or whatever, you meet them, and then next time you see their painting, you have some insight into who they are, and you've spoken to them, you've had those visual communication cues also. You're lacking on that on the internet until we have like the Steam It video chat.
Well,
Right.
I want to get Mr. Gary Bedell there. I'm going to just flat out call
Yeah.
him out on this one. This is, very much in mind for someone like you to come down and kind of have an idea of what it is and actually kind of get a little excited.
We need to do with him exactly, well, no, because that's kind of complicated. I was going to say that's the passwords for Steam It are not something to be trifled with. I was going to say we should do like we did with our friend Chewy, #PickleLife, where we created a Facebook page for him after him saying for so long, I don't want a Facebook page. I'm not ever going to get a Facebook page. And then we made it, and so many people believed it was actually him that he finally kicked everybody out of the driver's seat and said, screw this, I'm driving this car from now on.
I made the page so I knew the password, so I posted the password in a public forum and said, here's his Facebook page, who wants it? And so he had to
horrible.
take it.
#the password is hamburgers.
The password
I
was
love
hamburgers.
pickles.
What?
I should have thought that through.
Password, I love pickles.
Hamburger pickles.
Ooh.
That's a call to action for Chewy.
Chewy is going to cease listening to our podcast now that we said the word pickle.
So, as far as, I did the Meat Tornadoes post. I'm continuing on my Story Tracks posts from week prior. So I'm up to 5 on, I think I'm up to 5 on those.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm having a ton of fun with those. And I also entered into the Steam It Write-Off Challenge.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that one is on, and I always get this
Coming
wrong.
of
Yeah,
age
it's
or-
not coming of age. It's a rite of passage. But I always think coming of age because that is a rite of passage. But they're on rites of passage. So I did a post for that as well. I've done more writing. Once again, I think I'm still just in content outpour mode. I did get into a few discussions with some people, which we can touch on later. But I mean, that was largely where my week was focused. How about y'all? What did you do this week?
Well, I've continued posting my workout videos, which I think I'm going to make a change to. I'm still going to do my daily workout, and I'm still going to film them, but I'm probably not going to post a video every single day.
Yeah.
It gets a little stale. I can feel it getting stale. I mean,
But the workouts continue.
The workouts continue. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I'll probably do is maybe post one a week that shows a recap of my whole week.
Yeah,
And,
you could do a midweek blog post too, maybe
something.
minus without the video, and just say, you know, how do you feel? Or if maybe not even put it to a strict schedule and just say maybe a weekly video, of course, but like when you come up with, you know, when you change something, you know, maybe like your protein shake, like, hey, I started incorporating this protein shake.
Yeah.
You can write a post on that, you know, or whatever you're changing about your routine.
Well, and what's interesting too is I missed my first workout today. Yeah. It was day 13, but and I see Mr. Gifted Guy
Glaring eyes.
like he's like on the verge of making noise with his mouth.
Mrr.
There it is. And instead of I actually just didn't have time to. I had so much stuff I had to do today, so I didn't have a chance to fit it in anywhere after I woke up. But we ended up going on a photo session with a lovely engaged couple and doing an engagement session, and walked around the park for probably a good 4 hours with them. So that was my workout today. I actually did get to. It was amazing though, because it's the first time I've gone on a photo session since before I started working out. Walking around that park was no problem. I was.
You got to
enjoying
learn
myself.
to engage your core while you walk. I'm not kidding. I'm actually
no,
not
I know what
kidding.
you mean. I know
if
exactly
you
what you're talking
tighten
about.
up your abs, and it'll turn walking into like, oof.
Dim planks.
Yep.
When I'm on the phones at work, actually, I'll stand up and that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Because I don't like sitting on my butt when I'm sitting there for 8 hours a day.
No,
so.
I can't take that.
Right. I love my
Sedentary
job.
lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. I love my job, but I can't.
Nope, I understand hashtag cube life.
This
all
core
too
talk
much.
totally makes me think of Dwight Schrute bouncing on his little fitness orb. It enhances your core.
There was a guy
I've
in a
seen
previous life that not a real previous life, sorry, that's the term we use for last job,
Ooh.
that
Nice.
that had an exercise ball for a chair, and he was always just bouncing all over the place. But I got jealous real quick, so I never got one.
That would make any job awesome.
it
Just
really
bounce
would,
around
yeah,
on a
just
big ball.
a giant yoga ball, like.
Boing,
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom, chuck, chuck, boing.
I also saw that you went back and posted some of your older time lapse stuff.
Oh yeah, I did. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff I feel like as soon as I found Steam It and understood what it was like to, post stuff and get attention for it and make a little money for it, I started posting everything. And nobody was here yet. So I kind of went back and I chose some of my, a little bit more of my prized posts with some of my, some of my better work, and was like, I think this deserves another shot. I've done that like 3 or 4 times, but you're absolutely right. The last thing I think I brought back up was the drive lapse, right? The driving time lapse.
Yeah, that's the one I saw.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was cool to write that because I had to kind of look at that whole 180-degree shutter thing. Most people don't even see it. So for me to explain it on there was really kind of challenging because it's like, yeah, there's an aesthetic that you don't know that you want in everything that you watch, but it's there. I promise you. And here's how it looks. Did you see it? No? Well, it's there.
Well, didn't you have like a photo without that effect at the end to give that
Without any blur at all?
right? The compare contrast.
Yeah, and I think I understand what you're saying as far as going back and posting your old stuff. We've kind of talked about that on past podcasts, how you post your stuff, it doesn't go where you think it should, and then you kind of reach in the bank and get the older stuff, and it doesn't necessarily go, and you're like, well, hell, I'll just try to push it back out there again a month or two later. I have a lot of that with my drone videos, which that's one of the things I posted this week was I caught this fantastic foggy morning. It was just one of those things where I've been there before. Like I've had that day before when I very first got my Blade Chroma, which is the nicer photography drone I own. Like maybe 2 weeks after I had it, I showed up to work one day and there was these low-level clouds, and I was like, oh, I'll put my drone in the air. I wasn't even flying at full legal limit at that point. I wasn't like comfortable with it, and not even thinking or knowing what I was doing, got arguably the best footage to date on that time back in April of this year. And then just earlier this week, I don't remember specifically what day it was, Same thing. I'm driving to work. I happened to grab my drone and had my backpack with me, and I've taken that thing probably every day for a month and have not unpacked it and flown it at my office, but it's just good to have there just in case. And was driving to work, recognized the cloud cover, and by the time I got to my office, I was jumping out of my chair ready to go. And that footage is just, I knew what I was doing this time. I had seen it before, so I took the video of it and knew that I was going to end up with like probably a 5-minute time lapse where I take 17, 19 minutes worth of video and speed it up, and it gets to be about that point. But yeah, I posted that on Steemit. And,
well, and you went a little bit deeper in that post too, didn't you? You kind of extrapolated a bit more on your kind of personal thoughts and feelings and more of the adventure of that experience.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because pretty much how I just described the story is virtually what I wrote when I was just trying to tell the story of what that video was, how it came about that morning. And it's also, for me, I'm not used to blogging my feelings about things, and so that's kind of one of those things that Steemit's kind of changed the way I'm interacting on the internet, is because I'm not just sharing these videos or these DJ mixes. I'm actually, I keep saying actually, I am trying to...
Absolutely, actually. Obviously. Exactly.
Honestly. Exactly.
Honestly.
This is a joke that's never ending. So my point there, as far as ending that, was just the blogging. That's new to me, and that's...
No, I really like it. I mean, it adds that touch that I think brings out a little bit more of your personality and who you are and how you want to express yourself, and I think that it adds an additional layer of depth, because the drone footage is amazing. I loved it, and that was awesome. You always have great selections in music and good footage to go with it, and I think that adding that layer of the adventure that you took that got you there is, it's just, and maybe I'm a little bit biased coming from somebody who's writing story tracks, but having a story to go with the music, to go with the footage, it makes it this cohesive unit that I think is kind of hits on everything about your experience that you can express in one post.
You're right, and that's also when I say that people that just are having that moments with their pets in their house could film it and put it on Steemit. That's just pretty much like capturing the moment and making it original. And obviously there's the bigger picture there as far as like the artists and everybody else that's involved in the cryptocurrency, as far as like what their place is also in the Steemit community. But to me, it's kind of showing me a way that like kind of normal day-to-day interactions could be something that's viable content there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And actually, just real quick, I'm not going to ramble on about it, but there's one thing that I saw as far as what I saw on Steemit this week that it fell right into exactly what I was just talking about just your normal day-to-day. And it's somebody that Naifaz, Naifaz. Is that how we say that username?
I think so.
Naifaz?
She's in the Minnows United group.
There you go. Psycho Chica knows everybody on Steemit.
Apparently. I saw some references on what was it? Who was it?
Virulent?
No, it was the Minnow Report, Team Leibniz on his Pascal Triangle.
Yep.
You were up there with Dan the Man and a few other biggins. So
Really?
Whoa.
What?
yeah, no. So did you not read the Pascal Triangle one?
I did.
I'm pretty sure it was that one where he has like. He was using it as a mathematical equation to compare like the number, like frequency of users, and there's like Dan the Man, like it's a handshake scenario, like how many times can each person shake each other's hands, and it's like Psycho Chica, Dan the Man, and then I don't remember the rest of the other names.
I'll have to go back
in there.
through that.
Yeah, no, you have to go look.
Huh. And I didn't know that either. I'm going to have to go look at that. So we'll link that obviously in the podcast blog post. Just to kind of close my point out here, we were talking about just how Steemit could be a day-to-day thing, and this user, Naifaz, I think we agreed, posted a post called Healthier Options of Frozen Meals, Evil, Fire-Grilled Steak. And this is a TV dinner that they sell at Walmart that I used to buy, and I haven't in probably a couple months, but it's just because I tried another brand. But this is a post about a TV dinner. It's talking about how you could buy this versus going to a fast food place, and the TV dinner in itself is actually somewhat healthy. Excuse me. It's made with like meats that doesn't have any antibiotics, and I'm pretty sure organic rices and stuff. I'd have to look into the post here, but the point is just this is a post about a TV dinner. It's a review of her, or he or she, basically trying to get the people to realize that the fast food isn't the best choice. This is just as fast. It's actually less expensive, and it's way healthier for you. And I walk
I never
by
thought
this
of it
thing.
like that.
Well, I walk by this thing like, yeah, that's appropriate for your lifestyle changes here recently as
Yeah.
far as the healthy swing. So you buy these at Walmart. I walk by them probably twice or 3 times a week, and I've had them 100,000 times, and never once in my brain did I think, that would make a good Steemit post. But for this person, it did. And reading it in the blog style format, it was kind of inspiring. It's like, hey, you got the choice, and this is the choice you should be making as far as the healthier option. And it's not untrue when I say that it's absolutely delicious.
No, I that's a good point to bring up, because I definitely have felt like I'm very a stream of consciousness writer, so I am a very active writer. I write, exactly what comes to my brain when it comes there, and editing is something way down the road for me. But it's one of those things where I write how I experience things, and I experience things in a kind of an altered style of my own narrative, and I find myself more and more like everything is a blog now. Everything. It's like when you play a video game for too many hours and you like get in your car and you have to remind yourself, like, this is not Grand Theft Auto. Like, I can't go 90 miles an hour.
That's a bad one to mix up.
Well, it's the obvious choice, but it's the same thing where like I'm walking outside on just the sidewalk, and I'm like, he was walking on the sidewalk contemplating exactly what had gone down in the meeting 20 minutes before.
Where to find more meat.
This reminds me of that Stranger Than Fiction narrative.
No, it very much so. I was like, the coffee in his cup was still stale from this morning, but he drank it anyway because he felt like refilling it was too much of a task to undertake. And it's like, everything's a blog now.
Photography does that.
Does it?
Oh my God! It makes you look at the world differently because it teaches you about the true mechanics of light. And so
I
when
don't
you
know
start
that I
looking,
could take that. Like,
It's-
every blink is a picture that I'm missing. I would freak out.
Well, and I can back that up just as far as I started taking drone photography not too long ago, and I feel in tune with weather patterns, sunlight, sets, sunrises, sunsets.
I'm sure
sunlighting.
wind speed.
Wind speed's one of those things. It's like a yes or no type situation. It's like
Go or no
I'm
go.
good.
the drone tries to compensate for a lot of that, doesn't it?
This particular one is pretty smart. Like I fight with the terminology drone because it was explained to me that a drone is something that can fly itself, and this one
Right.
does have a return to home, so technically it flies itself.
Physics takes you down to energy and patterns. And
Yeah,
things
no,
like
that's for
that.
sure. I definitely get caught up in those quite often as well.
That actually ends up, before I get into a topic that ties in there, a couple of things that I actually ended up doing this week on there was, one, I did like a transgender AMA.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
no,
put
that
it
was
all out
huge.
there.
That's right.
And I really tried to give full answers, like, there's some things that were a little more unusual,
Well-
but no one was being mean. It wasn't
No, it
disrespectful, and
seemed
I
to be
put it on the
taken
table,
really
so
well.
I didn't have any issue. But man, that took up a day or two. But that was really
Man.
really great.
Well, it was nice of you to stay on top of it and like keep the comments answered.
Yeah, I really tried to kind of stay there, and at one point I was about to fall over during this one. I was up to like 3 a.m. after like 3 or 4 hours straight of walls of text. So I at least put a couple of notes on there. If I see this is great. I will promise to get to it tomorrow because I had to pass out. The other couple on there were, it kind of started with looking at educational system that we currently have. Just to put the disclaimer out there again, I have absolutely no problem giving the benefit of the doubt to teachers that they are doing everything they can with their limited resources and time.
Married to one.
So this is purely a look at what the system is,
No,
what
it
it's
is,
trying
and
to
it's.
achieve.
I will tell you for sure that from a teacher's, or at least a teacher partner's perspective, you hear it as much from the teachers that they can't escape the system either, and that they're doing everything that they can within the system, and sometimes kind of on the edges of the system. But even they recognize and acknowledge that like it could be so much better than it is.
Actually, I was pretty excited to see her put a reply on there a few days after.
Oh, yeah?
So TL Tran,
Yeah,
here's your shout out. I appreciate
Hey.
that. I know Team Leibniz kind of commented on there as well. Just so I don't ramble too long, the basic idea is when everything was started for the educational system here back in like the 20s or so, maybe 30s, they took it from the Prussian model, which basically
The
is
Industrial Revolution.
yeah, it's there to make good workers, people that listen to their bosses.
And
Are they on time?
Just enough reading and writing to be able to read the manual and
Right.
write your name to a time card.
And while I'm not trying to say it never had its use, because you kind of need that
Oh, no, we
as the
definitely
Industrial Revolution was turning on, but nowadays it so falls flat. And that's kind of what my article was getting into. And there's a huge gap between what employers are requiring from new
yeah.
graduates and what the graduates actually have and perceive as being sufficient, but it's not.
Yeah.
And usually this is in the areas of like critical thinking and creativity and stuff like that. So great, you can be on time, but you're not really a whole lot of use. So just to tie it all up, it basically went into like multiple intelligence, and there's some schools that have been existing for a while in the U.S. alone that kind of get into these, we'll say, more well-rounded metrics of what they're trying to achieve. So I won't hijack it anymore, but...
No, you've had a bunch of good posts, and one of them that I wanted you to talk about, if you don't mind, is your I don't want to write for bots post.
I love that one.
I've actually been... I've been softening my stance on that somewhat over the handful of days since then, because I've kind of still continued to research and what's going on, and my issue really isn't so much the fact of... It's on the one end, I don't want to be writing for bots that are purely looking at metadata, like how many links are going in and out, how many followers do I have. I'd prefer something or somebody that actually interprets it and likes it, honestly, or feels something. Or,
Sure. No, I did a post on that too.
And now where my stance is softened, because I left it with William Blake, who I'm going to bring up one of his articles after a while, is that I would be more perfectly comfortable having a bot that basically filled your Netflix queue.
Yeah,
Here's
no,
a
that's
bunch of
fine.
recommendations in randomized, personalized categories that some human is basically pulling the trigger.
Kind of like a Reddit for Reddit.
Right. And I get it. I mean, I'm not trying to say that there's no place for bots, but that was just my own preference. I'm not trying to tell people what to do, but at the same time, I don't want to be writing for metadata because that takes the fun out of it for me.
Well, no, and I definitely want, like, as a fictional, like a more artistic writer, from that perspective for me, it's like I don't want, it'd be just like if you're doing a painting, I don't want somebody just like clicking a number clicker saying how many paintings they've looked at. I want somebody to give me like, what did you feel? What did you see? What did you like? Like, I want you to experience my writing. That's what gives me joy. And if it's just an upvote, then great. I don't care if I made any money on it. What I care is if you had a relationship with that piece of art. And
Exactly.
I want to know if, especially like, and if you don't want to share that experience, that's fine. But if you do, I would love to hear, good or bad, if you loved it or hated it. I want to know what you feel about my work.
Well, that's one spot where the bots currently fall short, regardless. I mean, I've seen people like Smooth a lot and Bernie Sanders that do a lot of the by hand curation. You see them commenting and giving feedback or things, like that.
Sure.
Which, regardless of what the feedback is, I appreciate that. That's that human touch that
Right.
we're kind of wanting, and what I was kind of meaning out of that post. And even if there's a bot that's back there and choosing, I was reading, I believe it's Steamed. I have to look it back up. He was one of like the original miners, I believe. I actually ran across a post of his that was kind of calling for authors to add to these curator list.
Right.
So he could come in, see what they did, see if he liked it, and he also would go back and kind of periodically check what it chose and try and read as many as he could.
Oh, nice.
Which that was a huge kind of thing for me seeing, and why I'm softening my blow to some degree,
Right.
because it's not necessarily just is the human in the loop. There's on one end, is the feedback occurring one way or the other, that whether we like it or not, that on the content creator side is a big factor that we like.
Right.
It's not necessary, but we like it. Then there's the other side of a human actually going back through and reading the posts. Even if they don't comment, they make adjustments to make sure that it's now pulling the post that they're looking for. Like, if I
Right.
didn't like this one, I'm going to take it out of my list and try and adapt something
At
else
least,
in.
if nothing else, it's an extension of self.
Exactly. And that's really where I started softening my blow. My stance on that a lot was there's the human in the training system. It ends up not being a matter of a bot issue. It's back to the same old curator issue that I don't want to...
And I would definitely, just touching on that, and I know both of us have some articles that touched on this week as well, but I know that bot is shorthand, but to me, a bot is a very strict and rigid program that just does one thing. And if you're getting into something like a learned, like machine learning or a neural network that you have coded to read very specific types of posts, and you are training it to be like you, to me that's a totally different level of ball game, and I would definitely soften up on that as well.
Right, and that's, I mean, I think I had that kind of knee-jerk reaction when I read it out of the post, and I needed to just kind of vent on it, but I still went back and did further reading and trying to figure it out afterwards, and I mean that, I've changed my stance a little
the
bit.
Follow-up's always important.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get around to it. I've been taking it easy the last few days. I had a birthday party for Demetros, who I know is signed up for Steam It, but I don't believe has started quite yet. But he had a birthday party, so we'll poke him again soon. Did anyone else have anything in particular? Because I do have another one I want to get into, but it's going to be a little bit deeper discussion here.
Well, I had one thing. First of all, I definitely agreed with pretty much your whole standpoint there, because I didn't really understand that that's how those bots worked. And yeah, I would say, I mean, I would pretty much stand right alongside QA over here with how he replied to that, because it's like, okay, well, that feels a little different.
If it just upvotes everything that's pushed out,
right,
then no, screw that thing. But
right,
if there's some work invested in it, then yeah.
And that's just, I mean, I'm sure the information is out there, and that's part of why I kind of continue looking for it, but it's not something that's easy for everybody to see, with thousands of blog posts going by every day that we're trying to keep on top of, now up to 24 hours for payouts.
Thank you.
That's awesome, by the way.
To us late night posters, we really appreciate that.
I'm thrilled with the 24-hour payout again, and it keeps bumping it if you keep getting some activity. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge whale that.
It's like a kick the can down the alley sort of effect. It's like, hey, I like that. You're going to get an extra 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah,
on
I was
your
pretty
thing
stoked about that.
Yeah, I had one go for what? I think you had one go for like 37 hours.
Oh God,
the AMA.
Yeah, that AMA just kept going. It was great. It was absolutely great. I mean, I really tried to respond to every single thing, but after about the 2 days, whew, at some point I'm going to take a couple of those responses and kind of turn them into their own posts and kind of flesh them out a little bit, because there's a lot of things that I think are good to kind of represent in a little bit more detail.
Oh, sure, it's an ongoing conversation.
I had a decently successful I forgot about this, and it was around the same time you posted your AMA.
Duck crossing or goose crossing.
The goose thing, yeah. No, it was a video called Stroll About that I actually put together a few years ago out of a bunch of clips that I shot that I thought I was going to sell as stock clips. And I was like, nah, screw that. I'm going to go ahead and make my own little thing out of them. And I kind of put that and slapped some music on it. And I was like, I want to make it look like film. So I put a bunch of film grain and damage and stuff like that on it. And I posted it. I didn't think it was going to get that kind of response. I thought it was just going to be another thing I posted. Like everything else, it's like, 75 cents. Yes. I actually had another question. I'm going to veer the conversation left a little bit here, because I was looking at QA a minute ago about a term that somebody in the chat was just asking me about. I believe I was speaking to. Are you in general? Are you in the general room?
I can be real quick.
I believe he goes by Content Junkie.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him around.
Yeah, he wanted me to give a shout out to the Minnows Unite movement, and I'm not terribly sure what it is. So you kind of gave
you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah,
Psycho Chica.
I'm a minnow, so I don't know.
Barely.
Psycho Chica
I
can
can
give you
get
the
into this
rundown
one.
of that. Yeah,
Really?
Stand back.
I believe it's Crypto Hustlin' and Houston, and I think there's someone else that works with them. So we'll give proper proper credit here in the post details. But the main idea is, as we all know, as minnows, you kind of need some traction on your posts at the very beginning to help get them in, keep them on the active page, get them on the hot page that makes them viewable to others. That's kind of just how it works. So it's not, a vote for vote sort of thing, but it's a much tighter knit group of, instead of being in post promotion with everybody, and a lot of time it's, people that come in, post it and leave, which is fine. This one, you kind of have separate rooms now of original content. You can post content that you think is hot that's going to be upvoted and hasn't been hit by whales yet.
Well, and I raised my hand here because Content Junkie is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
That is the user that posted an article that I was going to talk about briefly in reference to the UFC 202 event the other day. Well, I'll sidebar that and just go ahead and continue.
Just as a real quick aside here, and we'll definitely, this is about a 2-second thing. Didn't you and I have a discussion about that fight? I think we did.
That was the one where we sat around watching the fight and thoroughly enjoyed it while kind of giving our rough play-by-play. But we had Joe Rogan in the room with us, so that helped.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
He's there to save the day for us.
You're awesome, Joe.
We almost sang Disney songs. Almost. But then we thought, no, I don't have a good enough lawyer to do that. That's true. It would have gotten to be quite an expensive production.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, maybe if we get enough activity, as far as on this podcast post, we might be able to convince you guys to release portions of that MMA podcast you're talking about.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll have to run that one through some editing, I would assume.
Yeah, we'll see.
But before we get too off as far as the Minnows Unite,
yes.
It's basically, again, you're trying to get that closer knit people that you're actively engaging with the smaller knit group of people that are on the same level than you, and it's just kind of a little, I don't know, I don't want to call it cliquish or anything like that, because anyone's welcome. But it's basically that nice little step up. It's easy to then kind of tie yourself in as a new person to someone that's a little more experienced. It's easier to take critical feedback, like constructive feedback from people when you kind of know them a little bit. Like, this is great, I like this, but maybe we should do formatting, or maybe we should tie this down or use less passive speech, or, however you want to go about it.
Sure.
But if you haven't heard about it, it's got its own hashtag, Minnows United, I believe.
So, and here's something that, maybe I was just in a bad mood that day, but there was, so the post-promotion channel split into like 5 channels in chat, right? And there's now post-promotion anything goes, moderated, other only, where you can only post other people's stuff, and with conversations, which seems to be 90% of the time lacking conversations.
I did not know that. All I knew, I think I may still be in the moderated one.
Yeah, the moderated is still the kind of the prime one, but the same thing happened with the Minnows Unite, and I think somebody had just pinged at all. Well, when that new chat room, when all those new chat rooms are created, because I was just in the normal Minnows Unite, and I was just exploring. I wasn't really deeply involved in it. I was kind of dragged into it. Well, when 4 or 5 new channels created, it was like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning our time. I was barely having any coffee in me, and I was getting all these dings and all this. It was like dinging at all, and all these people are suddenly flooded, and my screen is spammed with chats. So I went off a little bit, and part of that was, I guess, partially based on fear of. Back to kind of our earlier conversation with bots, is that I don't want to be involved with a group that is just upvoting content to upvote content. I want people that are actually, I don't want the comments that are great job and move along and then come upvote my stuff. Like, that's not what I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of something that I want my upvotes as much as they can, and I realize not everyone is going to, but as much as they can, I want them to be unique, meaningful upvotes.
Well, helpful.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
it's one thing to be like, great work, pat on the back, but it's another of, like we're talking about that.
Right.
More in-depth.
What did you like about it? The conversation.
I mean, I really do think you get a little more of that out of the Minnows United.
Okay.
There's always going to be, because we're trying to bring in new people, you have to get them over that hump.
Right.
Again, sometimes that's just, they just put a wall of text on someone else's comment and they just can't think of anything, but one at least will give the comment. It's one of those, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but I found
well, no,
it a
but
little
I was
more
afraid it was just kind of a ring of upvoters that just go to
that is
everybody
not
else's
the
stuff.
idea. I mean, if we'll post the kind of manifesto.
Okay,
for
so
this.
that's what I had not. I'm not sure where I originally got the Minnows United. I think I actually spoke about them without really knowing who they were to begin with. So I've not gone back and read the manifesto, and I've only gotten the gist from what I've seen, kind of in their chat rooms and stuff. So
it's impressive. There's been a lot of work done by these guys, and I give them a lot of credit for what they've done. We'll make absolutely sure to get all of these credits and everything in place so you can see the manifesto. We'll make sure QA is able to read it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's not an upvote for upvote sort of thing. The whole idea is
good. I was very afraid of that, because there's been a few of those, the upvote rings that have gone around, who shall not be named. But
and this I can, because I've been in there for a number of weeks. I mean, I'd say at least 2-3 weeks that I've been active in there. There's been some that I've tried to kind of help out myself periodically. That Nafas with the evil meal earlier is actually in that Minnows United as well. There's also another similar group called Pay It Forward that kind of has a slightly different idea. This is actually
I think that
William
was
Banks.
one of the first ones that I saw. And again, just most of it is fear of upvote ring. And
Right.
I've stayed away from any of the hashtags that even sound remotely like, I'll upvote you and you upvote 2 other people. I'm like, I don't want to.
We'll post the original pay
Their
it forward as
manifesto as
well.
well. All right.
It's again the same idea of in this one it focuses a little more on let's go and read things and try and comment on things that are outside of your normal comfort zones intellectually.
That's
so
cool.
It's not necessarily meant as an upvote ring. It's try and expose ourselves to things that are different because we're too busy over here. Or
maybe it's just the hashtag choice that I have such a knee-jerk reaction to. Like Minnows Unite to me sounds like I don't know that it needs to be some grand unification or us versus them mentality, which I know it's not,
right,
but it's just the choice of hash. And pay it forward again is my first mental reaction to that is just like, I upvote you, you upvote 2 people. And so I haven't taken the time to kind of...
Well, can you imagine trying to get your group exposed with the tagline of "We're a bunch of really nice people over here that like to read all of our comments. And
We're just great."
It's not going to grab you
no, that's
when
true,
it's in
that's
that
true.
list. So I mean, a lot of times you're going to have those really catchy, strong kind of titles
Right.
with the sentiment that we're wanting behind it. Anyway, I won't babble anymore about those.
No,
I
you're
think we
great,
did
no.
great justice there.
Good
but
stuff.
if you're a newbie listening to this, check them out. We'll put all of the links and everything in there. There's a lot of just easier ways to kind of get into the community outside of just I feel like I'm alone and need to start screaming.
Well, and you've been a little quiet the last couple of episodes, so I would say you're
I
catching
was
up.
going to say the same thing. It's great to hear you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we actually jammed earlier. A gifted guy and I were. He was on his machine back over there doing some finger drum, and I was on the on my chime drum.
And that's machine MASCHINE.
Ooh, fancy.
That's how you spell it.
It's a pretty fancy little thing. We'll take a picture of it, show you guys afterwards.
Native instruments.
That is who makes it. It's very true.
I think
Yep.
that makes it an official shout out with the God voice there.
It sounded
God can be edited.
That is for another podcast.
That is a bumper sticker, is what that is. God can be edited.
So this
know
kind of
about
actually ties in a little bit with the deeper concept I was going to get into.
Sounds complicated.
William Banks, he made a response on his blog to Heretic Kitten, and she had written about what is beyond evolution. It's kind of the transhumanism argument. Where is the human race going? Where do you perceive it going? Things like that. Very futurist, which I appreciate.
So God can be edited, is what you're saying?
I always picture the
100%.
Futurama episode with Bender where he's gotten shot out of the torpedo and he ends up having the meteor hit him and the
Oh,
people
that's
get
great.
there and he kills him with the quarter and all that. Anyway, he
Careful,
eventually,
careful. We don't want Fox lawyers calling us here.
Well, he eventually runs into God that looks like a computing galaxy sort of thing that ends up when it's all said and done, the only way you've done anything right is by them not knowing you've done anything at all. Well, I'll give you guys the little gif of it or
Oh.
image after we're done.
Yeah, we
No,
need
I
to put that
definitely
on the
love
show.
that episode.
That is a great episode of Futurama.
Oh, it's I
They're
love that
all
one.
amazing.
But without going too off topic here, William Banks basically responded to Heretic Kitchen's, kind of where's the human race going question, which we'll link that. It's actually a really good read as well. William Banks blew my mind a little bit. Like you guys have heard me talk about things like this before, and I've gotten kind of into what he was touching on, but he easily took it 5 steps further. Just to narrow it down, because this is kind of mind-blowing when you step through the whole thing. Obviously we're already a little beyond just our, we'll say, biology as far as what our pressures are. We don't have the same things as far as food and water. We have climate control and we're inside houses. So our stresses and our things nowadays are a little different as far as who procreates in that evolutionary sense. What are the strong traits? And it's not necessarily being bigger, stronger, faster anymore. A lot of times it's being more creative and interesting.
Money.
So,
Innovative.
so
yeah.
my point out of all of this is we're already kind of beyond what we were thousands of years ago because these pressures have changed. So where are the pressures going from here? That's kind of where this ends up getting into.
That actually kind of reminds me of I don't even remember what magazine it was. An old friend of mine actually showed me this while we were working in a cubicle-style environment. And it actually showed a picture. It was just one page in this whole thing, and all it did was show a picture of a bunch of cubicles. And the caption underneath it says, "Has evolution prepared us for an environment that no longer exists?"
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back to that here in a second, because there's a clip from one of the Cylons, the Dean Stockwell Cylon from Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that I'm going to circle back around to here in a minute. So, to cut it short with William Banks' post here, we're currently at the point of being Homo sapien. We've already got the point where robotics are starting to tie in with neural impulses as far as like prosthetics and things like that, where
Yeah.
if you actually think about moving your arm and your
And your arm
prosthetic arm
moves.
moves. Well, there's also the trend that he refers to as, I believe it was information density, like computing density. So it's not just a matter of us having faster and more computers available. Things are scaling down as far as size. What used to take a room is now tenfold in our pocket.
Wow.
Sure.
If you continue that trend, you can now combine those two into essentially smart nanobots,
Right.
where he gets into the scenario of everyone goes in for their shot. From there, the nanobots basically are multitasking, and whatever needs fixing, they over time fix. If a
Well-
cell degenerates, they can either bring it, help repair it,
Clean it out or bring it back.
or put something in its place if it's completely died off.
Well, and if a new disease comes out, the great thing about that is instead of having to get a new shot, you just get programmed. You downloaded that update.
Exactly.
And now you're not
I've
vulnerable
got
to that
cancer. I
anymore.
need to get my firmware updated.
Yeah, right.
And this is where it starts then trending into that first step that he refers to as Homo Cyber. Basically, also, by the way, this post got so little love. I highly recommend anyone
I
checking
need
it
this
out.
one. I've been on a similar surfing adventure this week.
I'll keep this one pretty short here. Once the nanobots basically you get that shot, you're able to kind of get tuned in as far as like to the internet. Essentially, if you have internal
Sure.
computers with Wi-Fi detection,
Subvocalization.
and eventually you hit that point where all of those human things that were you have now have basically been redone by the nanobots. So eventually your cells themselves die off, but because you've got the nanobots, they've kind of replaced those, we'll just say, pure biological
So
things.
it's another version of the transporter problem.
To some degree. I mean, we regenerate our cells, I believe, every 7 years. You've kind of
Right.
worked all through those same cells, so it's just an extension of when you've run through those 7 years again, just to make it easy. The nanobots replace them with non-biological cells, or something more like wetware cells, where it's got that cybernetic aspect to it,
Right.
that it takes care of the mortality problem.
And what happens to consciousness?
Well,
So-
that's what he... Oh, I'll let you go, but he has an answer to this.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's interesting, actually.
Well, don't spoil it all.
I'm curious to know the answer to that myself, but no,
Yeah, no, don't spoil the post. I want to go read this now.
You sort of metamorphose from a Homo sapien to a Robo sapien.
Essentially, he terms it Homo Cyber, exact same
Okay.
concept. He continues on from Homo Cyber to Homo Superior, once the point that your entire cellular structure has basically been redone in a cyber sense.
And then AI superior.
But I'll just end it on the thing as far as the consciousness. The same concept as far as the brain and the neurons over time, because as far as theory goes, the number of neurons we have, they can die off, but they're not necessarily recreated.
Right.
And that same idea of if you have these nanobots recreating the cells that are dying off to maintain them, over time, all of those neurons are, we'll just call them cyberized, or, nanobot has been affected.
Incorporated.
And once that happens, the brain itself, the biological brain, is not there. It's on this new cyber composed medium.
Right, so then you can upload it and
Right.
edit it and do whatever you want with it at that point.
His specific term for that, I'll have to double check it, but it was like stratus independent or stratum. Substrate independence.
Yeah.
That's the specific term where it basically you have the ability of it moving from the biologic thing, because this makes the argument that it's not the physical brain that makes consciousness, it's that interacting state pattern that's within the brain. So if you can mimic that in, say, a neural network or something similar.
Well, and we'll only know once we actually do
Exactly.
that. We don't. I mean, you could replace a person's brain, and they couldn't even tell you that they're not conscious anymore. They could probably act like they were, but you wouldn't know. They couldn't tell you that I'm not having an internal dialogue anymore.
Exactly.
If they're not having one, they wouldn't know.
As far
I've met
as the
those
effect,
people.
it's the same. And, that's the joy of these futurism, transhumanism
yeah.
debates. And I'd love, go
I'm
back
a
and post on these.
I'm all about uploading my consciousness 100%, but it is still one of those questions that like I don't know that we'll ever truly be able to answer.
Until we get there, but if we can just get that step
Right.
of being able to live a little bit longer and a little bit longer,
A little bit
just
longer.
might see it.
A little bit longer. So in other words, what you're saying is
Resistance is futile.
It's kind of what it sounds like.
okay. I just wanted to double
for
check.
sure.
To some degree, and that was the big thing that I had as a question back to that post was, one, do you expect people to kind of grow and adapt with these benefits the same rate? Because if you basically say have the ability of, we'll just say matrix implant, some people are better able to exploit that than others. Some might resist it as far as the uses. So when you put that in a long-term evolutionary sense, again, there's going to be different pressures selected. And then two, if you get to the point of having an immortal population and so many consciousnesses that exist, what happens in the sense of procreation? If you just have immortal people that keep giving birth, do you run into issues as far as, I mean, scarcity? Do they just go out amongst the planets and do the same thing? That, I'm not expecting it in the bad light, but that's a possible thing that I'm curious about.
I think Winston Wolfe just answered that for us.
Resistance is futile.
No, I think that there's definitely something to be said for. We're already nearing, at the first tiniest little steps on that line with things like sex robots and artificial intelligences and stuff. Where I think that a lot of people's sexual desires can be fulfilled in cheaper and more effective ways, to the point where it could become a birthing crisis. I mean, we're already seeing in countries that are that choose to educate women to the same standards as men, that birth rates tend to drop.
Japan is in some butcher this.
There's a lot of European countries that are starting to see negative birth rates as well.
Exactly. And over time, that's a scary thing.
And I mean, I don't think it's a terrible thing right now. 7 to 8 billion people is definitely more than the minimum viable amount for humanity.
Sure, I meant terrible in the sense of keeping your culture going versus, we're dying off. And Japanese culture, as far as comparatively, there's a lot less Japanese people, I would guess, than Russians.
Well, and that's true, but how much if all of that culture gets digitized at some point, then it's never gone.
That's true. We're talking some pretty spectacular hypotheticals.
Well, yeah, but it's all steps on the way there.
Heretic Kitten actually told me they actually have a sex robot in Japan now.
Oh yeah,
I've been waiting to hear about that.
There's a
QA knows all about that.
Hey, when you're interested in your robotics and the week is slow, you read some articles that you may not feel great about reading afterwards.
Is it Rule 37? Is that what it is?
34.
34.
Rule 34. There's porn for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steam it, bot girls.
Rule 34 kicked
those
in on
came
day one
before
of Steam.
anybody needed to make them up. All right, they were already there.
I think that humanity's pretty much been ready for that for a while now.
This actually ties me back real quick to the end of William Blake's post. I'd mentioned that Battlestar Galactica clip.
Yes.
I love that show.
I believe it was the #1 Cylon. Again, Dean Stockwell was the actor. His name was Brother Cavill or Cable. I'm butchering it. I'm sorry.
Kaplan? I know what you're talking
You're the
about.
Battlestar expert here.
I'm not an expert.
Not it.
But basically, his whole rant was because the point is he's a robot that was programmed into a human body to experience things as a human would while still being tied in with the greater consciousness. In the clip, he's basically going on a rant of, I don't want to be human. I want to watch a supernova while seeing the X-rays and the full EM spectrum going off in its full grandeur.
Well, that clip is actually, I've got a drum and bass song that has that as the sample. Exactly what you're talking about. He's like, I
Of
want to
course
see.
you do.
He goes, I want to see X-rays. And
Exactly.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I mean, from that standpoint, it makes perfect sense. We're gonna have you include that. We'll have to have you post it up so we can share that in.
Yeah, I'll. I think it's called Beyond the Void. I'll find it. It's like a 2010 fresh mode drum and bass circa thing.
Fresh. What is this fresh mode you speak
Fresh
of?
mode. Hashtag fresh mode.
Fresh mode.
That's how I remember most mornings going the next day. It's Cavill.
Where was I last night?
Yeah,
Fresh mode.
that's yeah. John Cavill, Cavil, as far as the character name.
Gotcha. But yeah, it tied in with the whole thing of when you're looking at something from the grand spectrum of what's going on in the universe and not just what you're tuned into. Some people would prefer the tuned into everything. I mean, we don't always realize how limited we are.
I apologize for my squeaky chair.
I think all of us a little bit. It's okay. No, so it's interesting that you bring up that post because and I may make some noise here for a second. So
Make some noise.
did you see that one at all? Are you referencing that one in part?
Yes.
Okay,
that's
what I thought.
Heretic Kittens.
That's
Okay,
that,
read,
okay.
read that post title for the listeners.
So, and it's funny because this is one of the two posts that I was going to bring to the table. Luckily, I have a backup, so it's all right. Because there was actually a conversation between Heretic Kitten and I'm going to butcher this Renzoarg.
I've seen them in chat. And I
Yeah,
know
so
the name.
they were both going back and forth about artificial intelligence.
He's in
And-
chat right now, as a matter of fact.
well, hello. And so maybe we can. Is he in general? Yeah. Hey, let's get him to pronounce his name.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
That's a good use of
I'm going to
this.
look at it really quick and see if I can pronounce it properly before he tells us how.
While you're looking that up, basically, yeah, the William Blake post that I was referencing
Renzorg.
was a response to Heretic Kitten's post that you're talking about, but it was one of those, so it was something that needed to be its own post versus just in a little response there, so that's kind of why he broke it apart, but it is a direct answer to this.
How did I add all? What? No.
Did you really?
Oh, no!
Oh no!
Oh, no!
Oh,
We are not.
Sorry,
I tried
folks,
to-
we
I
are
don't-
going to
I
have to take
no
care of this
idea.
on our own.
I'm gonna get murdered.
So
Oh,
okay,
no.
hold on. Everybody, calm down.
Hold on.
No,
Calm
so
down.
I okay. Watch. If I put at right in front of Renzorg, the first selection that comes up is all. So if you type somebody's name in chat and then you hit the home button because you forgot to put the at symbol there,
Oh, dear.
all is. I can't even use the
dear.
down. What?
All right,
What
calm
is
down.
going on?
We're gonna survive this. I think.
You're both in and
Deep
not
breaths.
in chat at the same time.
Take a deep breath.
Oh no!
It's okay.
Our very own QA just at alled while recording the podcast.
Live on the podcast.
Oh no! He's
Well-
hang on.
This
So
is
we need to.
Oh, it'll be okay, I promise.
So for anybody listening to this that doesn't know why that's a bad deal, we've talked about that before. Somebody please.
It's so terrible.
I'm gonna make QA explain why it's a bad deal and how sorry he is.
Oh, that picture's no. So
This is
that
awesome.
captures it
So-
beautifully, though. He is truly sorry, folks. It was totally not intentional.
if you're like me and you absolutely hate the sound of a doorbell, a very loud doorbell will come through when at all is typed, notifying you that you have been summoned to chat. And if you are doing anything but chatting, like playing a video game or listening to a podcast, this wonderful bing bong will summon you away from your illusion that you are within, and it'll break your concentration. And if you're writing, you'll crunch all of your keys, and you will come and then destroy whoever typed at all.
He is now cleaning every single pitchfork wound on his side right
Yes.
Did we ever get an effective answer of how to pronounce Renzorg's name?
No, because I asked at all how to pronounce his name.
This is awesome.
Well,
Good
while
stuff.
we try and watch QA, bob and weave from the thrown pitchforks and other flack. Anyone else have anything in particular that's gone on this week?
I saw something that I thought was really cool, and I'm not going to add everyone, but I can talk about it.
Let QA do it. He seems to be pretty good.
Oh, God.
He's in damage control mode over there, he's typing away.
I'm sorry.
So the Steemit username for this one, and I'm not going to say this right, and this is the game we play, it's Trisnawati, and the spelling on that is Trisnawati.
Trisnawati?
Trisnawati, that sounds great. Let's do that. Okay, so anyways, we'll tag this person, and the blog posts that I've been seeing, they're all macro photography, like really tiny insects, and
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure they're taken with her cell phone.
very possibly.
And it's awesome. And it's just one of those things, I'm not going to sit here and dwell on it, but me having the photography bug, no pun intended, the photography bug here recently, it makes me, when other people notice things, you can see their passion in it. Like, for me, I want to go get a sunset, but for this person, it's to go get a picture of this bug. And when I look at it, it's not just an amazing little picture of a bee. It's completely something where you can see like why she's passionate about it. Like that's her calling to go out and capture this, and I identify with that
For
based on, like,
sure.
drone stuff.
Well, and what's really interesting too about doing the photography or the macro photography specifically, when you say with like a phone or an iPhone or something like that, you'd be surprised the little clip-on lenses you can get for your phone. There's, they've come out with macro stuff, so you can do cool stuff like that. They've been able to make these little like $30 or $40 adapters you can put on a telescope, so you can use your iPhone as your telescope camera and take a picture of Jupiter and its moons. There's also, and I kid you not, this is something that's actually real. They made a adapter that you can get for your iPhone and an app from the company that makes this adapter, so you can actually do your own sperm count. I'm not kidding. This thing exists.
Wait, you don't have to use your iPhone for that, right?
I'm
if
sure
you want to count them out one by one.
Now, here's the thing. You probably will want to use your iPhone to look up your porn first.
So it is an integral part of the process.
Well, it's an all-in-one unit. The iPhone does everything.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
He's still recovering from you using the word all, so you might want to...
Yeah, he really is. He's still in damage mode.
Count all of them. Ding dong.
Okay, so I'm talking about counting sperm count, and you come out with ding dong.
Hey, you know what?
Wow.
I'm sorry.
This is what happens.
So sorry.
This is what happens when you do a podcast drunk on meat tornadoes. So, speaking of meat tornadoes, I think we should do a meetup, a Springfield one, and then I think we should serve some meat tornadoes.
A
And perhaps,
meet-up tornado?
Yeah, well, I'm throwing some money. We'll make some food and have some hors d'oeuvres and scotch.
If I'm going to make any more than 10 of those at a time, then somebody else's hands are going to have to get dirty.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll help you make some food.
Then sure, I'll show you how to make meat tornadoes. Ain't no problem at all.
We've got a kitchen in this studio.
It was good, but I got to tell you, it's not as big as the one that it's in the picture.
I didn't use a turkey leg.
So use a fucking turkey leg.
You can pay for a turkey leg.
I will pay for it.
All right.
We'll see how the
and about
meetup
2
post
more
does.
pounds of bacon. So
Word?
okay.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
You know what? If I'm not the one paying for the food, then I have no problem. If you want to just bring groceries to my house and be like, "Hey, cook me stuff," I'll be like, "Okay." And
Seriously? If I bring
I
you
am
things?
very
Okay.
serious on that. If you want to come by my house with a sack full of food,
Dude, we're lazy as shit. I mean, you can have a bite if you want, but
yeah, I'm just saying you're gonna have to bring the food to my
You
house
can just
first,
have
and then
Hy-Vee
I'll cook
deliver
it.
it over there. When decide what you want, have them drop it off.
I got to tell you, with what goes on at my house as far as the cooking is concerned, I'm sure she and I would look at each other and go, "You want to just take this to Brett? You want to just take this to QA?"
Delicious.
If only we had access to like an Amazon drone to just grab it from Brett's and move it on over with the little Domino's
QA.
pizza
Hey,
oven
so
thing in there.
Get Gaia on that and get him to do the food delivery.
This is sounding like a team effort.
Yeah.
We got some good team.
This is sounding like we're revealing who we are here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, QA.
That's okay. It's fine.
We don't have real
I
names.
started it,
That's all right.
and then it spread.
Well, and you can reinforce either the real name or the username. If you were to ever be a listener and want to talk to us, you can do so on our Discord channel. We talked about that last time. I feel I should reference it here once just because I like talking to cool people, and that's kind of how this podcast popped up. And I think that having that Discord channel available is pretty much for anybody. It's not just the Steemit chat where you can actually go have a conversation with somebody just on those conversational, written down conversational cues, but also you could actually come in here and hear our voice and hear our live podcast that we're just goofing around every night talking. And if that's something that interests you as far as like calling people by the right name, the wrong name, or any other name they deserve in that moment, that's a good place to do that.
I know plenty of names I can call you.
Oh, I'm sure I've
Easy.
been called worse.
Probably, but I'll try. Just because, no reason, just because I want to try.
Speaking of calling names, and I won't dwell on this too long because I'm not sure that everybody in the room's down with talking the mixed martial artist talk, but the one of the things that I saw on Steam this past weekend was a user that we referenced earlier, and that is Content Junkie, posting kind of a really nice tutorial about going through how to install AceStream and then subsequently how to watch the UFC fight that was happening that Saturday evening, which Winston Wolf and I talked about earlier. We had actually kind of did a little podcast thing during that. But it was, for me, I'm a huge mixed martial arts fan. It is not uncommon for me on a Saturday night if two events are happening at the same time to have two screens going with different things. How most people in my country would crack out on NFL football, that's how I crack out on the martial arts deal. And so I've not seen anything like that on Steam. And to be honest, I haven't really looked that much. But Psycho Chica was somebody that discovered this. I don't know, maybe in the Minnows Unite could have been, I guess. I'm not sure.
Very possible.
Yeah, and so you sent it to me in our Discord, and I had looked at it, and coincidentally, AceStream is the program that I use to watch a lot of the mixed martial arts that I catch, and it was just really cool to have somebody on Steam talking about this thing that I'm really passionate about watching. And it's not necessarily, I mean, it's a popular sport, but it's still a pretty small crowd. You don't run into a lot of people where I can just sit there and talk your ear off for 2 hours about mixed martial arts. I could, but there's not a lot of people that reciprocate that back, and I've not seen one person on Steam that did. And so to see that post pop up, that was pretty good. I like that.
I know it's not exactly MMA, but that kind of reminds me of I think it was Virtual Growth had been talking about like a potential of doing like a Steam at poker room or things like that. I know he had said that they do it kind of off of the Bitcoin currency currently, which I'm still interested in, but it'd be so nice to have it on the Steam at platform where I could just be playing. I mean, we used to play weekly games here in town. I'd play online for hours at a time. So I'm really excited to kind of see where that one goes potentially. Like, maybe I'll get over to the Bitcoin at some point, but it'd be pretty cool to be able to play poker tournaments for a little bit of my Steam it.
Yeah, that would be both good and bad for me, I think. There has to be some pros on there.
Well, I mean, I remember I used to build up on the online poker starting at like $2 buy-in tournaments that would win me $20 if I won. And yeah, I lost a little at the beginning, but then I stayed on those $2 and $5 tournaments and built up my bankroll from that.
You're not going to get me on a poker rant. I'll be here all night.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. But it's again one of those concepts of like apps and extensions. I've seen some of the other ones. I think they have a dice rolls one now where it's again like a game of chance, and they give you as much transparency as possible as far as house odds and where everything goes, and tagging the notes back and forth so you know that it's legit. But some of those other interesting extensions that we're starting to see.
It's a lot of probably opportunity there for any kind of app development company or person because, again, the website in itself is integrated with a live currency. It's all right there.
Well, and it's all open source, too, so...
There you go.
Yeah, they did that a
I
while
love
back.
living in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Steam It Talk podcast.
So, I mean, I did want to kind of circle back around to one thing, which is I know we talked about a heretic kitten, and that was the post that we were both kind of referencing was what is the final product of evolution. But in a complete kind of side tangent from transhumanism was kind of the growth of artificial intelligence, and that one in a fairly... I'm going to double check here to make sure that it's still... Oh, no, that went from an unknown post to a pretty decent article. So when I discovered it, that was probably 12 or 15 hours in. I don't know. I'm not sure where I picked it up, but it was still a very young post, and it wasn't moving too far, but apparently a few people came in and upvoted it. But that was Computer Intuition by Renzoarg, and... it was really interesting because they kind of go through the history of, learning machines from Deep Blue, the first supercomputer to beat a world champion at chess, to, of course, the more recent Go computer, and that was Google's AI, I believe.
I think so.
In either case, he goes through and kind of goes further. Sorry, that was AlphaGo, yes, which is part Google. But they go into machine learning and neural networks, which I both find absolutely fascinating, and how we're there have been some TED Talks on it in just the last 8 months or so. Maybe now about the last year. Machine learning has gone from being something that's very difficult to work on to something that is now being integrated across the board, and we're reaching the point very quickly where machine learning has already been used to make very nearly Nobel Prize winning discoveries. I mean, like, machine learning was how
Right.
several ways of cancer detection have evolved, where they fed a machine a bunch of pictures of precancerous and cancerous cells, and it detected new methods for identifying cancer that no doctor had come up with before. And when you get to a point where, like, we long ago accepted that the lever was stronger than our muscles, but it's going to take a whole lot more of our ego to accept that a machine is better than our minds.
I'd actually done a little of that protein folding out of Stanford.
Oh, yeah?
Like a lot of the other USA Gaming Clan guys had done that as well. Like, I saw them in the competition of how much can we top the
Right.
charts here.
Can we get it?
But that was the idea what that was the distributed protein folding and modeling.
Right.
That it was able to then run through all those massive
Mhm.
things.
And when everybody teaches it, but it's like when we get to a point that everybody was afraid that robots are going to take away all of our factory jobs, and for a large part they kind of did. But when robots start taking away jobs, like learned professions like doctors
Oh, I
or
got one.
diagnoses.
I have an article right here on a website called Futurism. You
Okay.
ever- Artificial intelligent lawyer Ross has been
Yes.
hired by its first official law firm.
Oh wow! I did not know that was. Yeah, no, that's amazing. You're gonna have to email this to me because that was one of the other ones. So there is a YouTube content producer by the name of CGP Grey, and he has a video called "Humans Need Not Apply," where he goes in and talks about how, like, the highest white collar jobs are actually going to be the first ones to go. That people that are in customer service or cooks or whatever like that shouldn't be nearly as afraid as people whose jobs are six figures or more, like doctors, lawyers. Especially when you're the best of the best and you make a holy crap ton of money. Those are the people who are going to go down first, because the best of the best will not be able to compete against a robot that knows all law from all countries for all time and is always right on the money when referencing
Right.
it.
But are they going to be able to program that robot lawyer to act shady and do shady lawyer things when it
I'm
needs
sure.
Well, and that's where a lot of the current argument
That's where
ends up
machine
being.
learning comes in.
I mean,
You act like this country has like a voter fraud problem.
to? What, just this country?
Or like you
You act like this world has some sort of voter fraud problem.
or that
That
we
is-
would code a morally just computer before we coded one that would, talk
Well,
shit.
It's like a self-driving car. I mean, it's got to be coded to both not crash into people, and if there's the choice of crashing into one person versus 20 people, it's going to crash into that one person.
I have to say something too about one of those Tesla wrecks. Now, first of all, I love Elon Musk. I think the guy is a genius, and I love the company. But I have to think it's a little ironic and somewhat humorous whenever somebody gets in an accident because the self-driving car thought the side of a semi-truck was the sky.
Did you hear about the Tesla user in Springfield who had a heart attack?
Yes, that is amazing. What
Yeah,
okay, let's talk about that.
So he was driving down the highway and had a heart attack on the highway, and
Yeah.
instead of calling the ambulance and trying to get off on the side of the road, he just programmed his Tesla to take him to the emergency room.
Right.
that's
And
great.
and arrived at the hospital in much faster than anybody else could have gotten to him, because he was already on the road and knew and identified what was going on.
Exactly. I'm in a moving
That's awesome.
box
He
right now.
definitely finished, like, he had it to go to the hospital, and he self-drove certain sections of it to make sure that he didn't automate it all the way up to the door or anything, but he
Wow.
got it to take him off the highway and get him off the off ramps and stuff, and then drove into the hospital there. So
It reminds me so much, both this and when you're getting into like the lawyer and the other white collar
Right.
services being automated by AI. In one of my earlier Utopia posts, there was a comment from a guy, DR2073, however we want to pronounce that. And
Dr. Oto.
well, he had posted about
What was it? Dr. Dr. what?
Dr. 2073. And he put a link to a story online, I believe the author was Michael Breen, called Mana. That I think we had talked about it before as far as
so.
the manager software and things
Yeah.
like that. Well, I finally got through a little bit more of it, and later on it gets into, again, automating some of the white-collar stuff. And that's kind of a lot of times the fear when it comes to AI and AI plus and plus plus is taking over all of our jobs in this
Right.
way. And so there's a whole other discussion as far as, well, what are humans there to do and things like
Well,
that.
and I definitely think that, I mean, I would, if I had my choice between a fallible human diagnosing my cancer and a robot that had all of the information of all doctors of all time and also didn't cost nearly anything versus a doctor who only had the knowledge of his teachers and cost a crapload, I mean, the choice is kind of obvious.
And human fallibility.
There's a couple aspects there of, one, even if something is good, it still can take us a while to trust it.
Oh, yeah.
Fully. I remember similar as far as like AI being pilot associates and things like that. It's there to be more a decision support control versus in control.
Even mechanical quote-unquote AI, like cruise control in a car. I mean, of course, now it's a lot more automated, but before it was just a little, a lock for your throttle. And
right.
that's
it's
still one of those things that, like, people were afraid of to begin with, or auto dialers
and
on your phone.
We're slowly getting there and
Right.
trusting things. I still hate my autocorrect on my phone, especially when I'm in the chat room. But the big point out of this is there's still that distinction between AI on a specific task, like chess or Go, or even to
And
some degree
general AI.
Exactly. Like there's a whole other thing between running through logic and giving you the closest estimated answer. And I'm not trying to take anything away from it.
Oh, no.
But that doesn't necessarily simulate the concept of consciousness.
Well, and that's the scary thing about machine learning, though, in things like AlphaGo, where AlphaGo was was not programmed just to play Go. They just fed it Go.
Right.
But AlphaGo itself, like the program that it's built upon, is a general machine learning program that you can feed it anything and it will learn how to do that thing. So they just said, well, for an example, let's feed it Go and beat the best Go player in the world. But that same program, you can feed absolutely any kind of information. I watched a demonstration where they showed, reverse image searching, basically, where they were able to show this is a picture of a car, and it will, a picture that I took on my cell phone, and it references that it's the side of the car, and that the car is red, and that the car's make and model is this or that, and it, is able to learn and respond in kind. And it's still very young, but machine learning is the biggest step towards general AI that
Are
we
they
had to
keeping it
overcome.
all essentially in like the same database? So like they fed it all the Go information, it went through playing, and now it's gotten the information recognition info. Is it kind of in the same area, or have they kind of started
That
new instances?
I have no idea, and I think that's the big scary top secret part. I'm not sure that we're allowed to know that answer.
That's common in those areas. I mean, if it's going towards general AI, in my mind, you have to have something as far as that memory reference from topic to topic. I mean, we always compartmentalize certain things in our own areas, but then we get those ideas of, hey, this reminds me of this model over here, that starts to interconnect them, that I would assume is necessary for general intelligence.
I think that on that note, you kind of have to have almost like the prefrontal cortex of the human's brain, where we have our logical portion in the back that is filtered through our prefrontal cortex before it ever gets out of our mouth. You almost have to have like a smaller AI that generates that chaos, or that makes those connections, that then reaches out to all of these database instance AIs, and that's when you'll get a lot closer to some kind of a unified form.
One thing I wanted to kind of put out there real quick, that this was just too awesome not to include here. HR1 recently put out a post about the AI Squat Manifesto. Got a little bit of coverage, but the idea is basically kind of that let's take a step as what we can do almost in a physical collaboration sense of, him, his girlfriend, I forget exactly the relationship, but I believe Moore was her name, and then maybe some others as far as like a core group that kind of stay there in this flat.
Right.
And then have others that can kind of come and go over periods. I think on the similar one we had looked at was about 6 months as far as the shelf life of a lot of the people there. But the whole idea in the old one was to talk tech and kind of advance those things. This one, it's the AI Squat Manifesto, so the whole idea is to be there and progress ideas as far as consciousness and, moving towards a general intelligence sort of AI. Again, just AI-oriented. That we'll link the post in here. If you haven't seen it, it is just, it's a wonderful idea. I'm very curious to see how it's implemented and hope I can do anything I can help with. But I at least wanted to throw that one out here because it is just amazing.
That sounds right up your alley.
Oh, yeah. How can we get to something better? I like that question.
Steam It seems to be prompting those conversations, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, HR1 was one of the first that kind of responded early on, I think, to my introductory post that kind of prompted hey, I'd love to see your ideas. So I put up a wall of text on my concept of utopia and kind of went from there and pulled in other people's concepts because I don't have all the ideas. I'm not going to tell other people what's right for them.
Right.
But if we have the discussions, we start to get a much better idea of what these core things are.
All right. Well,
I think we've kind of run the gambit this evening.
we've talked about meat tornadoes and
I ate a meat tornado.
live
we had a
sampling?
live sample.
Yeah.
That thing was live?
Yes. The nanites should be working their way
I
into
thought
your
I
brain
kind of felt it
soon.
moving a little.
We've discussed the scary insights into our terrifying future in the future.
The future of the future.
Yes. All I know is if I get taken over by nanobots, I hope they turn me into a delicious meat tornado. I think I'll be 2% happier with my life.
Just two?
Freedom isn't free.
You didn't take out the toothpick, did you?
Oh, that's what's hurting. Oh. I'm just kind of relieved to have the answer to that pain I'm feeling.
Oh,
So,
no, that's just the cholesterol.
Cholester at all?
Oh, it hurts in my heart. Oh.
Did we have anything else to touch on before kind of wrapping up tonight?
I didn't have anything.
I did want to throw out there, if anyone has any responses or things as far as what we talked about, we'd love to see pictures of your own meat tornadoes. Just toss them in a reply down there.
Or if you have any kind of topic starters or recipes or cool things that you would like us to review, not just your own stuff. We don't want you to just come in and this is not post promotion. But if you see something that's genuinely cool, or you have something that's genuinely cool, or you have some pictures or something of somebody else's cool thing that you've replicated, then bring them on over. We'd love to see it.
And I'd like for you to take that content that you referenced and put it into our Discord, because that's the way that I'm going to pay attention to it right off the bat, as opposed to just missing it in the wealth of Steam and I might not see it. If it's in the Discord, I'm damn sure going to see it. And I'll be happy to talk about it on the podcast if it's something that's moving to me.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Since there are 4 of us here, it's we don't all have as much insight into the replies of the podcast unless we go there and physically refresh the page ourselves, because we don't have our own feeds for it. So the Discord page is definitely one of those places where it lights up when there's some new posts in there, so all of us can see that. I do try to check the comments on the podcast, but after 2 or 3 days and you get 50 or 60 tabs open, sometimes some things slip through.
Or at least just do like an @ one of our names, and more than likely we'll catch it in a reply. But yeah, we're in Discord during the day. There's usually at least 1, 2, if not all of us on Central U.S. Standard Time, by the way.
Does at all have any effect in Discord?
It will at all. Everybody in the channel you're in.
Don't at all.
Don't at all. It hurts.
And there's already some cool people in there. I mean, that's the reason that I keep mentioning it, is I feel like the people that listen to this, that they enjoy these conversations, it kind of resonates what we're saying, then they should certainly continue the conversation. The best way to do that is to find us in Discord.
And also feel free to come in if you want to talk about totally not Steam It related things.
Absolutely.
There's several of us are gamers.
Life Beyond Steam It?
Right.
What is this?
No, it's
Is this like the next big MMO called Outside?
yeah.
I like
Great graphics. Leveling up takes forever though.
Pokemon Outside.
Just one last note: if anyone has replies as far as like the transhumanism concepts, like William Blake or Herida Kitten, I would recommend actually putting those on their posts and not necessarily the blog, because I want the credit and the kind of conversation to continue for them, because they're the ones that actually did that.
That's a good point. And we'll definitely reference that so they can find it.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Sounds
that's
good.
pretty much everything I've got. I think I'm pretty babbled out at this point.
Babbled out.
I'm good for now.
Yeah.
I'm feeling all right.
I'm feeling all right.
Feeling all right.
All right, Steam It Talk number 5.
Feeling alright.
I'm feeling all right.
Yeah, that was okay. That was all right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening tonight. I am Gifted Gaia.
I'm Winston Wolf.
I'm Quantum Anomaly.
I'm Psycho Chica.
Y'all have a nice night.